It's news time. And what is the news? Well, the news is Hunter Biden indicted on gun charges, facing 10 years in prison if convicted. Let's take a look.
Well, it was highly anticipated, and now it has happened. The federal government has just filed an indictment against Hunter Biden on that gun charge. Our Justice correspondent David Spunt has got the latest from the DOJ. David?
Hey, John and Sandra, 4 pages here. Hunter Biden, Robert Hunter Biden, indicted by the U.S. Attorney, or in this case, Special Counsel David Weiss, based in Wilmington, Delaware. As you mentioned, we knew this was somewhat going to come because his office said it would happen before September 29th. We have 3 counts in this indictment. This is related to the purchase of that gun. Remember, back in 2018, we've been reporting on it for several years. Hunter Biden made a false statement. This indictment alleges made several false statements about the gun charge or about purchasing a federal firearm. He said that he was not addicted to drugs.
10 years, 5 years, 10 years.
Okay, I'm looking at Jake Gibson, our producer, is reading to me right now. The maximum penalty would be 10 years of imprisonment for count 1, which is a false statement. So let me go ahead and read through this, but just to kind of summarize things.
I think there is nothing funnier, and I tweeted about this earlier today. There is nothing funnier to me than the Republicans championing jailing Hunter Biden, and the only tangible prosecutable acts they have on him are gun charges and tax evasion, which is things Republicans absolutely adore and things Republicans think should be legal and permissible. Okay, they love doing that shit. The trifecta is quite literally, the trifecta is gun charges, okay, being able to exercise your Second Amendment to its fullest extent, okay, not paying taxes, and last but not least, drunk driving. But drunk driving is more of a universal principle for Americans in general, so I will say not paying child support, okay? Not paying child support is the third best, favored Republican practice. So the fact that this is what they are frustrated or this is what they're supposed to like gear up against Hunter Biden on is pretty awesome. It's pretty funny.
Things here. This is only relating to Hunter Biden making false statements on a federal gun form that he was not addicted to narcotics when he had in his possession in Delaware a gun for just over a week back in 2018. John Sanders, this is not related to the tax cases involving Hunter Biden or any other potential charges. The special counsel said those charges relating to his taxes or lack thereof paying taxes could be brought in another district outside of Delaware. John Sandra?
Yeah, David, I think it's worth just, as you were reading out count 2 from this form, as Jake Gibson was sort of going through the indictment with us,
yes.
that Hunter Biden knowingly made a false statement, okay, and representation to Company 1, licensed under the...
Like, how are you a Republican? How are you a Republican watching Fox News right now and going, yeah, this is fucking awesome. I'm glad that they're throwing the book at this piece of shit. And it's like, they're literally talking about hitting him for 10 years for hitting him for 10 years on literally gun charges.
Provision of
making
Chapter
false statements to get a gun.
44, Title 18, United States Code. And we'll get legal analysis of this in just a moment. With respect to information required by the provisions, okay, as I make my way through this, certified on the form, okay, this is what he was alleged to certify in the form, that he was not an unlawful user of and addicted to any stimulant, narcotic, drug, and any other controlled substance.
What are they saying? He needs to be in prison for 100 years along with his dad and family, bunch of corrupt scumbags. He needs to be held accountable for every criminal act he's pulled off, not just the gun charge. Now get the rest of the family off for the corruption, not on drugs bullshit. Took long enough, seriously. Still, this is nothing compared to everything that he has done. He needs to have charges about taxes and more. What is the prison sentence for accepting bribes from enemy countries, money laundering, and income tax evasion as VP and POTUS? Oh, shit. How deep does the well go? Chat, we did not understand that it turns out Barack No Bummer also was involved in the Hunter Biden scheme. Maybe they were also having gay sex while doing crack cocaine. Things that both Barack Obama and Hunter Biden enjoyed doing. Maybe not in that order, maybe in the reverse order, but still. Think about that, but don't think about it too much. Because if you think about it too much, you might start getting too horny.
When, in fact, as he knew, that statement was false and fictitious. It reads, David.
Yes, exactly. And then it goes on to say count 3 on or about October 12, 2018 through October 23rd. Hunter Biden knew that he was an unlawful user and addicted to a stimulant narcotic drug, and then did knowingly possess that firearm. And specifically, it mentions the firearm as a Colt Cobra 38 SPL revolver. It gives the serial number. So this is not good news for Hunter Biden's team. Hunter Biden's team knew this was coming, and what makes things a little bit more tricky in this case, and we'll expect to hear it from Hunter Biden's attorneys if they put out any sort of statement or any sort of filing, is that they believe that a diversion agreement on this gun charge is still in effect. The original plea deal, Sandra and John, that fell apart back on July 26th in a Delaware courtroom in a rather public manner, originally had a provision that Hunter Biden could enter this diversion agreement for this gun charge, meaning he would avoid jail time. Now we know, according to U.S. Attorney David Weiss, Special Counsel David Weiss, that is completely off the table. Hunter Biden, however, and his team, they say that that is a valid agreement because it was signed back in July. So there's a little bit of back and forth on how that happens because Hunter Biden's attorneys say that this is an active diversion agreement, but clearly the U.S. Attorney's Office not buying that. Special Counsel David Weiss indicting the son of the President of the United States in his home state of Delaware.
Wait, hold up. Wasn't Hunter just using his first memorizing the circumstance? No. Oh, man, suddenly the right cares about gun control. There was someone in here that said something. Oh, isn't he a private citizen? Why is Fox News covering this? Come on. This is a criminal trial for the son of the current president of the United States of America. Of course they're going to cover this. This is a big fucking deal. Come on. That much is totally fair. I do agree with this. I do agree with the coverage of this news story. It is a big deal. It's just that it's not, I guess, as big a deal as the Republicans want it to be.
Sandra, John.
All right, David Spahn, if you could just stand by with us on the breaking news. Thank you.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley. We're going to get to Jonathan Turley now, George Washington University law professor and a Fox News contributor. Jonathan, what do you make of all this?
Well, this falls under the category of you have to be careful what you ask for because the deal that they struck originally just didn't pass muster with the federal judge. You know, the defense team got the sweetest of sweetheart deal. But upon even a cursory examination, it collapsed. You know, if they had been a bit more modest in what they were seeking, they may have been able to secure a plea and not face this type of stacked counts. These are significant charges with significant potential jail time. He would be a first offender, so it's not like he's going to max out. And also, these will all run concurrently, so it's not going to be a consecutive 25 years. But it's still a very serious move. It puts the president in a tough position on a number of levels. First, this is a law that the president supported. And his
Why does that put him in a tough position? I think he should do what he's done thus far, which is demand that justice be served, that Hunter Biden is not like above the law, okay, and that if he is found guilty in a court of law, that he will serve his time. And then, of course, in the lame duck session, if he doesn't get reelected, he just pardons him. But, like, you know what I mean? Yeah, surely Joe will say that. He has said that. He literally has said that. It would be an unimaginable flub for him. Well, like, and he has enough political instincts, regardless of how decrepit and how much his brain has melted over the years. He has enough political instincts to know that it would be disastrous if he said anything but throw the book at him, Jack. It's the Mac attack. You know what I mean?
His son is going to have to try to challenge it as much as possible. Second, one of the most obvious challenges that can be brought would be to challenge the constitutionality of the underlying law, to challenge the law his father has supported. That has been done in other courts. But to do so, he will have to cite cases that his father has denounced from the Supreme Court, cases that expanded the Second Amendment rights afforded to individuals.
Yeah, there's a lot of potential contradictions going on here.
Yeah, except, again, he's not the president. He's a totally different person. I don't know why people can't fucking comprehend this. Like, not only is he not the president and an entirely separate human being, he's a very famous fuck up. I can't believe it feels like I'm defending Joe Brandon here. Okay? But like, not only is he not the president, that he is a very famous public fuck up, that his father, the president, has regularly just been like, yeah, it's just, you know, do the thing, Justice Department. You got to do what you got to do. Okay? Like, there hasn't been a incredible amount of support towards Hunter Biden publicly throughout this entire process. So, like, because everyone is hyper focusing on what Joe might do. And it's like, yeah, what's going to happen? What's the end goal here? If Biden comes out and says, yeah, he's my son, but prosecute him to the fullest extent of the law, what's GOP's next angle? No Biden family loyalty. He has said that already. Joe Biden, when asked about the Hunter Biden thing, and which, of course, they're going to ask him about that. That's like, you know, a top of mind issue like the top of the hour ad break is, right? Because at the top of the hour, there's a 3-minute ad break. And if you no longer want to see those ads, all you need to do is subscribe. And if you, yeah. Republicans not satisfied with Hunter Biden gun charges. Yeah, this is what I was going to say. I feel like this is not going to be exciting enough for the Republicans who think that, like, Hunter Biden has been doing sex crimes and, like, you know, doing it alongside Joe Biden or whatever. Because, like, they cooked them way too fucking hard for years and years. Like how I cooked you so hard at the top of the hour that some of you are coping and give me a 3 out of 10. You know what I mean? You're coping. But listen, fear not. You don't have to see those ads. Like I said, all you need to do is subscribe for $5 or for free with a Twitch Prime by connecting your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account or by getting gifted a sub. Here's the 3-minute ad break now. So, because for the past, like, what, 2-3 years now, that they've been talking about the laptop from hell and how Hunter Biden is doing child sex trafficking and all this, like, insane shit, it's going to feel shitty. It's going to look like a hollow victory if the only thing you have is, 1, no connection to the big guy, Joe Brandon, and 2, the charges that you're even bringing upon the little guy, Hunter, is just a gun charge and tax evasion. Like, there's no shot. If your expectation is that, like, justice is supposed to be served and this guy's supposed to be hung for treason after a fucking trial, where he is, where he's met with a jury of his peers and they say, Hunter, you have, denied America you have betrayed America by working with its foreign adversaries and blah, blah, blah. It's like, what the fuck? He's maybe going to jail for, like, a gun charge? That sucks. Congressional Republicans who made Hunter Biden one of their top targets signaled they are not satisfied with the new indictment brought against him. Hunter Biden was indicted Thursday by Special Counsel David Weiss on felony gun charges. I mean, I'll admit, getting him on gun charges is a perfect bind for the Democrats, because no Democrat's going to go out to bat to defend Hunter Biden and be like, actually, they should lower his charges. Like if the federal district decides to throw the book at him, there's not going to be a tremendous amount of public support for him, because you're Democrats. Like, Democrats love gun charges. You know what I mean? They want to do this to every single American, right? Technically. So it's not going to be a good idea. Okay? It's not going to be good. No one is going to stick their neck out to defend Hunter Biden like that. The plea deal fell apart, obviously. The agreement would have allowed Hunter Biden to plead guilty to a pair of misdemeanor tax offenses and avoid prosecution on a felony gun charge by entering into a pretrial diversion program. Ironically, that's the one crime you can't tie Joe Biden into, said the Representative James Comer, chairman of the House Oversight Committee. Justice Department's sweetheart plea deal fell apart after a federal judge refused to rubber stamp it. Mountains of evidence reveals that Hunter Biden likely committed several felonies, and Americans expect the Justice Department to apply the law equally. Today's charges are a very small start, but unless the U.S. Attorney Weiss investigates everyone involved in fraud schemes and influence peddling, it will be clear Biden's DOJ is protecting Hunter Biden and the big guy. Comer said Republicans are looking for indictments related to money laundering, violation of the Foreign Agents Registration Act, and tax evasion, and the list goes on. For the record, this one is not even fake. Maybe even this part is real. I don't know. But I get why they would want to hit him on a violation of the Foreign Agents Registration Act, except I don't know if he actually was able to successfully or even unsuccessfully attempt to lobby the government. They are trying to say that he tried to attempt and successfully, as a matter of fact, lobby his father, but that part they don't have any evidence for. But I don't know. Maybe he tried to lobby other people in Washington, D.C. when he was working for Burisma or whatever the fucking Chinese emissary wanted out of him. Is influence peddling a crime? Influence peddling is not a crime, which is why there is no influence peddling here as a crime. It should be, but it's not. That's why he's not saying that he should go to jail for influence peddling. He's saying you should go to jail for foreign agents, for violating the Foreign Agent Registration Act, like Paul Manafort did. Like pretty much every single lobbyist does, by the way. Like, this is such a commonplace thing. This is such an incredibly common thing that people routinely violate, for the record. Like, it is, if you are lobbying the government in any way, or have lobbied the government in any way, and you have worked for a foreign corporation, you probably did it without registering yourself as a foreign agent. I don't even know what kind of limitations that would offer you. I don't know why many people just don't do it. And this is a bipartisan thing, by the way. This is not just Paul Manafort, because if you remember, Paul Manafort's business partner was, what's his face? The Benghazi guy's brother, or the Benghazi guy? Fuck, what was it? The one who was in the emails that were unearthed by WikiLeaks. Podesta. Tony Podesta. Not John. Tony Podesta also was working alongside Paul Manafort and was hit with the same fucking Foreign Agents Registration Act violation. So that part might be viable. That part might be sticky, but it's, again, not sexy. And also, for this to stick, personally, they also have to show that Hunter Biden even attempted to do what he was tasked with doing, which is lobbying the American government. It would be really funny if this fucking crackhead literally just lied to Burisma, okay, got a fuck ton of money, and never even tried to lobby the American government on their behalf, which would make this whole thing hilarious, because then he doesn't even need to fucking register as a foreign agent. He just literally got the money and didn't do shit with it. In this circumstance, him being a grifter and conning Burisma would be to his benefit. A fun thing to consider here. Okay? Anyway, let's keep watching what Fox News is saying about the situation.
Yeah, and I think Joe Biden was already asked that question, or if he wasn't asked it directly, Karine Jean-Pierre was asked why the president would support a diversion agreement when he has supported the idea of penalties for people who lie on purchase applications. Let me come back to what I was talking, Jonathan.
That opens up a civil lawsuit, though? What? No, it doesn't. What are you talking about? What, is Burisma going to sue Hunter Biden for not fucking lobbying his dad on their behalf? Like, what are you, crazy? Like, the party that is harmed in this situation is the dumbass company that hired Hunter Biden, thinking that Hunter Biden had any pull in the American government and wasn't simply a crackhead with the last name Biden. Okay? There's no civil lawsuit angle there at all. They're like the Republicans in Congress are not running the Ukrainian Better Business Bureau, okay? They're not going to be able to successfully defend the interests of a corrupt energy company in Ukraine by the name of Burisma.
With David Spunt about a moment ago, and that is a potential presidential pardon here for the presidential son. If I'm not mistaken, I believe he can issue a preemptive pardon, can he not?
He can. I wrote about this over a year ago, suggesting that if the president was not intending to run for re-election, he could pardon his son and admit that this was an abuse of the pardon power and to say that his penalty will be to be a one-term president. The pardon power has been abused historically by presidents to assist friends and family members. That included Bill Clinton, who pardoned his half-brother. So
I love Turley talking about notorious pardons from presidents, which he's not wrong about, and then only talking about Bill Clinton. I wonder if there were any other presidents, not even just Trump or Bush, but like very famous Republican administrations that have engaged in pardons that were completely fucking ridiculous. I wonder.
So there's nothing inviolate about,
like, it's just, he made it seem like it was just fucking Bill Clinton. That's so funny.
Presidential pardon power. It has often been honored in the breach by presidents in the use to benefit themselves personally or politically. So he most certainly can issue a pardon. He can do it prospectively. He doesn't have to wait for a trial. I think that what you've seen with people like Clinton is they waited till they were literally leaving office to use that power for personal purposes. And I would not expect that the president could pardon his son and stand for re-election.
Let's not forget, it was, I was just pulling up the date, July 27th, Karine Jean-Pierre, press secretary for the president for the White House, was asked about that from a reporter in the room. She was forced into saying and ruling out that President Biden would hand his son, Hunter Biden, a pardon. We're going to actually pull that. Yeah, Jonathan?
Yeah, I remember that, and I wrote about it at the time because I really didn't think that that ended the issue for the Biden. You know, if the president decides that he's not going to run for office, he may follow Oscar Wilde's rule that the only way to be rid of temptation is to yield to it. That's what Bill Clinton did. You know, he was literally on his way out of the White House and decided that he would pardon his half-brother. And so I don't think you can say that this is off the table for President Biden.
I just want to make sure. I felt like I paraphrased it, and Jonathan, sorry to interrupt, but the exact question was posed by our own Fox News reporter, Mark Meredith. He said, quote, "Is there any possibility that the president would end up pardoning his son?" To which Karine Jean-Pierre responded, "No," flatly and firmly.
Yes, and keep in mind, he may have to wait because this may not be the last indictment of his son. There's still torpedoes in the water for Hunter Biden. The most obvious is a FARA violation. And, that's being an unregistered foreign agent. Many of us have been mystified as to how the Department of Justice has been able to rationalize not bringing a charge against Hunter when they brought the charge rather liberally.
I love that there's like nothing happening yet. So they have to... This is like when people get mad at me for a hypothetical situation where they fantasized about what my take is on a particular matter and gotten mad about it in the chat. You know, when like someone comes in here and they're like, I bet you fucking hate that Hunter Biden's going to jail, right? You fucking idiot. And it's like, I never said that. What are you doing? Where like they bring in legal analyst Jonathan Turley, who's been chirping about the Trump indictments endlessly, okay, nonstop, to just make stuff up and then potentially fantasize and get mad at the fantasy. It's so funny. And it's just like, yeah, well, he hasn't done anything yet, but what if he did a preemptive pardon? It's like, bro, he just got indicted. Like, not only did he just get indicted, we don't even know how it's going to pan out for him, okay? But also on top of that, it's like there's no indication that Joe Biden is going to abuse his power at all, specifically because he has said the exact opposite so far, that he is not... he doesn't interfere with the Justice Department's affairs. It's a totally separate entity. He cares about the integrity of the justice system and that, let justice take its course. Does that make sense?
Against Trump associates like Paul Manafort. There are also tax issues here that could still be potentially litigated, although the statute of limitations was allowed to run on the most serious counts. So if the president's going to give a pardon, you might have to wait because it may require heavier lifting than just these 3 counts.
All right. Well, this could just be the first shoe to drop. We'll see if there are more. Jonathan, stand by if you would. Thank you.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe.
Conservatives are just accustomed to abusing power. They're projecting their penchant for power abuse of Democrats. It's hilarious. I mean, it's pretty funny because, like, Joe Brandon's entire thing is that he is...
Okay,
wait, where the fuck's the rest of the playlist? Joe Brandon's entire thing is that he is not like...
now we're going to Washington where we're...
he's like the Teflon Don, the real Teflon Don, in the sense that, like, he's not unshakable. Like, Trump was a Teflon Don because no matter what you threw at him, his fan base didn't care. Joe Brandon is a Teflon Don in the sense that you can't really throw anything at him because he's so fucking boring. Okay? Like, he's such a typical bullshit, by-the-book politician. Guys, I've said this so many times. He is a Delaware senator, okay? This is America's very own tax haven, okay? Delaware, the state, is literally a state, is a Passover state that is there specifically to operate as a tax shelter, okay? It's one of the many that we have. It's a corporate haven. Joe Brandon, despite being a fucking senator that has regularly advocated for deregulation of banks and defended corporate interests, literally over the course of his like entire lifespan long political career, at the tail end of his political career, didn't have enough money to pay for his son's cancer research. Okay? When he was vice president, he was about to take out another mortgage on his fucking house. Did I say cancer research? Sorry, cancer treatment. Beau Biden had cancer, Joe Biden's favorite son. Okay, who was being positioned to become an important politician and continue on the Biden legacy. Okay, he tried to fucking he tried to take a mortgage out on his house, and Obama's like, dude, you don't do that. Like, I got it, I'll cover it for you, which is hilarious. Like, he's just doing it for the love of the game, which is really fucked up. At least get the bag,
This is an
idiot.
NBC News special report. Here's Lester Holt.
Good day, everyone. We're coming on the air with breaking news. President Biden's son, Hunter, has been indicted on federal gun charges. It marks the first time a sitting president's son has been indicted on federal gun charges. Hunter has pleaded not guilty to the charges, but was originally planning to plead guilty as part of a deal that would have dismissed gun charges, but that deal fell through in court back in July. Let's go to Ryan Nobles now on Capitol Hill, who can tell us more about what has transpired. Ryan?
Lester, that's correct. Hunter Biden now facing 3 criminal counts related to that gun charge, and this came after the deal that was initially struck with federal prosecutors and Biden's legal team fell apart during a plea hearing in July. And part of the reason that this plea arrangement fell apart were these gun charges. Hunter Biden was scheduled to take part in a pretrial diversion program that would have allowed him to avoid these charges. But the judge in the case was very concerned about the parameters connected to that diversion program, specifically that she would be responsible for monitoring Biden's activity. That began her asking very serious questions about the plea arrangement in general. The two sides could not come to an agreement, and the judge did not accept those plea arrangements. That led to the special counsel in this case, David Weiss, who was originally the U.S. attorney, being given special counsel status by the Attorney General Merrick Garland, giving him the complete purview to continue the investigation into Hunter Biden and then hand down charges if he thought it was necessary. He signaled a week or two ago that there would be charges coming down and that they would come by the end of the month, and he has made good on that promise by filing these charges today through a grand jury. These 3 charges are connected to that gun charge. 2 of the counts are specifically related to the accusation that Hunter Biden lied on an application for a gun permit. And specifically, what the law states is that you cannot be an active drug user while applying for a gun permit or the use of a gun. And so the first 2 counts are related to that. And then the third count has to do with the fact that he made a false claim that he was not using drugs during that period of time. Now, the original charge had with it a significant amount of jail time if convicted, perhaps up to 10 years. We're still working out the details as to whether or not those penalties would apply to this specific indictment as well if it is successfully prosecuted by the special counsel's office. But of course, Lester, it comes against the backdrop of enormous political pressure that has been put on the special counsel, in this case, David Weiss, and of course, the political pressure that is now on the White House as it relates to this. Earlier this week, the House Speaker Kevin McCarthy announcing a formal impeachment inquiry into the President of the United States, specifically related to his son's activities, questions around whether or not there was influence peddling from the vice president's office through Hunter Biden and his business dealings while he was serving as vice president. To be clear, House Republicans who've been investigating this case now for some time have yet to deliver any hard evidence that connects the president at all to his son's business dealings. But this complicates the political posture for the president heading into a re-election bid that his son, now, as you rightly point out, the first sitting president to face criminal charges in a situation like this. Lester?
Ryan Nobles, thanks. We'll ask you to stand by. I'm joined here by NBC News senior legal correspondent Laura Jarrett and NBC legal analyst Danny Savelis. Laura, tell us how we got here. This was the same prosecution that had been willing to make this plea deal and now coming forward with charges.
Yeah, and I think it might be confusing for folks at home, especially as it relates to this gun charge that we're seeing today. This is not about failing to file taxes on time. This is certainly not related to anything having to do with Hunter Biden's foreign business dealings. This is solely related to lying on the form as he submitted it to the U.S. government in order to get get a firearm back in 2018. And so, Lester, you might be wondering also why now in particular. It's because of the statute of limitations, which prescribes a certain amount of time for which you need to bring criminal charges against somebody. And in 2018 is when he allegedly made this purchase and actually signed the form falsely, according to the government. And it's because it happened in 2018, they actually had to bring the charges by this October, or the statute of limitations would run out. So that's partly, I think, why we're seeing this right now, even though it has to do with something that happened way back in 2018. As also we know that the special counsel can file charges anywhere. So these happen to be in Delaware because that's where he purchased the gun. But the special counsel could still file other charges. He could still file things related to taxes or other issues, as we know the special counsel has been looking into. So we could see charges in places like California or the District of Columbia, and the special counsel, David Weiss, has already indicated that that's a possibility.
And Danny Savelis, let me ask you this. The case, as we said, is in Delaware. David Weiss was made special counsel only recently, and there was some talk leading up to it that maybe he wasn't able to pull the trigger in a way he wanted, and that's why he became special counsel. How does that play into any of this?
Well, what's interesting is when that happened, there was speculation that the reason that the special counsel status was placed on him is so that he could investigate in other districts where he could have venue and have the powers of the special counsel. For example, federal districts in, say, California, where there may be tax charges. But what this represents is that the government is still going after the firearms charges that already existed to some degree in Delaware, in that jurisdiction. What this tells us is that, without question, the idea of Hunter Biden pleading guilty to entering into a diversionary program, that is something that is forever gone. He is now indicted. That decision has been made. And now this is also a statute, a federal statute that is charged very often, but under a different subsection. And that's why there's a debate about whether or not Hunter Biden got favorable or unfavorable treatment. On the one hand, yes, the federal government charges under this statute all the time, but there are many subsections. For example, if you're a felon, you're a prohibited person, you can't own a firearm. It's very easy to prove if you're a felon. If, on the other hand, you are addicted to some kind of stimulant or narcotic, that's a lot harder to prove. Does that mean just mere possession, one-time use? What exactly does that mean? So that's a subsection not as often charged. So it could be said that Hunter Biden was charged with something that's rarely brought, therefore his treatment was harsh. But on the other hand, when he was offered pretrial diversion, which is no longer on the table, that
So the chatter said, Democrats are such by-the-book, boring losers. Republicans are grasping at straws. This is verbatim what I just told you. That's why it's a perfect avenue of attack for Republicans, because no Democrat is going to stick out their neck and call it like it is and be like, this is, of course, a fucking ridiculous situation where they're trying to throw someone in prison for a violation that, like, every American might have actually engaged in before they purchase a weapon. So that's it. It's true. But I am an advocate myself also for aggressive gun laws. So, fuck it. Throw the book at them.
That is something that is very rarely, particularly in the District of Delaware, ever offered at all.
All right, Danny, thanks. Let me turn to NBC News Chief White House correspondent Peter Alexander. Any reaction from the White House thus far?
No reaction from the White House at this point, Lester, though we have heard from the president and the White House on this topic many times in the past. I think in the simplest of terms, this is a political headache for President Biden, but it is also a personal heartache for him. Someone who is so close to his son. It's his loyalty to his son that some of his closest allies fear has caused political distractions. This certainly is not just that, but the potential to be a real impact as they head into the presidential season of 2024. This does set up the prospect of a criminal trial for the president of the United States' son, just as he is trying to make his case to Americans that he deserves another 4 years. The White House has said repeatedly that it has no involvement in this case. The president has repeatedly said that it is up to the Justice Department, that he has not engaged with them directly in any form as it relates to this case as well. And they also note, of course, that President Biden left David Weiss, that Trump-appointed U.S. attorney in Delaware, to lead this investigation. But you can't underscore...
This is a little bit like liberal both sidesing it. This aspect of this angle that the media is covering is deeply frustrating for someone like myself who regularly criticizes media. There is no both sidesing a situation. Like, you can't talk about how devastating this is going to be for the Biden fucking campaign when his opponent has like 700 indictments right now. What do you mean? Like, Hunter Biden's not on the ticket, man. What the fuck? Like, I say this as someone who doesn't even think Joe Biden's prospects are all too great at the moment. Okay? But it is nuts to be like, yeah, well, you know, Donald Trump currently he's facing 91 charges, okay, for crimes that he directly committed alongside his co-defendants, okay, some state, some federal. And we're like, oh, but you know, Joe Biden's fucking second cousin's third daughter, he got a parking ticket. So what are we going to do about that? It's like, come on. I sometimes despise mainstream media's like Thanos style coverage where they're like, perfectly equal as it should be. You know what I mean? They're sometimes so desperate to like cut a narrative that goes in either direction that they end up, I mean, not sometimes, they do it deliberately, they do it all the time, that they end up misinforming the public. That typical balance-seeking behavior is so silly sometimes, especially in this case. It's like, I don't think the average American that isn't like watching Fox News 24/7 is going to look at this situation and go, wow, this really destroys Biden's chances. No, the average American already doesn't fucking think that Biden is a great candidate to begin with because he's 7,000 years old. Okay? That's it. They don't give a fuck about like the drama or the controversy surrounding Biden because his son is a fucking fail son, especially when they have fuck ups in their own families too, especially drug addict fuck ups. Like, this is America, goddammit. So, don't know why this coverage exists in the way that it does.
How difficult this is going to be for the Biden family. President Biden, with one surviving son after his son Beau Biden died in 2015 of brain cancer, has been so worried about his son Hunter because of his addiction with alcohol and drugs in the past, something that he has not fully recovered from right now. It still remains a real concern. I think for the President of the United States, this has the potential to have a toll on him. There had been a sense of hopefulness that this case would have been resolved with that plea deal, Lester, that we had been so focused on in the past couple months. Of course, when that dissolved, obviously it did take a toll, we are told, on the president and those around him, with the understanding that this had the potential to go to where it has now gone today, an indictment from the U.S. attorney, Lester.
All right, Peter, thank you. Hallie Jackson is NBC News' a senior Washington correspondent. Let's discuss the politics of this. Hunter is a private citizen. This will be a political flashpoint. Would you expect the president will feel compelled or pressure at some point to talk about this?
Likely, Lester, simply because that is the way that this has gone through the years now that Hunter Biden has been in the political spotlight. The president is pressed about it. He has consistently, as Peter laid out, said that he believes in his son, that he is proud of his son. This will no doubt intensify the questions for the president as he is on his way to an event, or about to be on his way to an event in Maryland. You look at, and Peter so capably laid out the personal impact of this on the president. There is a political impact, too. And in a word, Lester, it is partisan, because we see deep divisions when voters talk about how they see the issue of Hunter Biden's business dealings and undoubtedly this indictment as well. In fact, a new poll out just today from the Associated Press, obviously taken before this indictment dropped, suggested that while about half of Americans say they have little or no confidence that the DOJ has handled this investigation well, it is a stark divide among Republicans versus Democrats. 66% of Republicans are concerned about any relationship that Joe Biden may have to what his son has done. Only 7% of Democrats. Those numbers, Lester, are not surprising when you talk with voters, when you talk to Americans about how they see the Hunter Biden issue. It depends on what they watch, what they consume, how politically engaged page they are and what side of the aisle they're on, because we know that there has been so much attention on Hunter Biden from the Republican side of the aisle, specifically in the House of Representatives, underscored very directly, Lester, by the impeachment inquiry that was opened just this week.
All right, Hallie, thanks. Laura Jarrett, let me ask you about other potential legal exposure. What are we looking at out there?
Well, it's interesting. You know, obviously, as Hallie laid out, a lot of Republicans have been skeptical of David Weiss, the special counsel here. And so I think a lot of people are going to be saying, is this it? Is this all he has? They have sort of been very upset that one of the more serious felonies that he could have potentially been facing, that one already expired on tax charges. Now, there are some that are still available out there. He doesn't have to necessarily bring those, but he does have to bring them again within the statute of limitations.
This doesn't mean he's finished then.
Well, we just don't know. And I think that's the big question. Again,
how does this motherfucker evade taxes in like every state? What's happening? I just don't get it. How did he how did he not fucking pay his taxes in like what happened here? Did he just like travel specifically and live in different states for 6 months? Specifically so that he could like not pay taxes there? Like, how does that happen?
he can file charges anywhere within the entire United States. So he could still file charges in California separate from this indictment. He could always do a superseding indictment with this if he gets new information and the grand jury decides to develop the facts more. We just don't know, I think. But if this is all that there is, you can imagine for some Republicans that have been very skeptical and making a lot of noise about Hunter Biden's business dealings, this will not satisfy them, given how cabined and how narrow the charges are here.
Yeah, because they think that the DOJ is supposed to be prosecuting Hunter Biden over pedophile vampire crimes, okay? Like, that's the problem. Because Fox News has been gearing the fan base into believing that that is what Hunter Biden's been doing nonstop alongside Joe Biden, and that they should go to fucking jail together for crimes against humanity. And it's like, God, I don't, while I love hog watching, I don't necessarily appreciate that like a big chunk of our time that we spend on God's green earth revolves around like, unfortunately having to take people who are just borderline schizophrenic seriously, like their fantasies seriously, just because enough of them now believe it because they saw it on a TV channel that regularly lies. Because if enough people believe it, then it's the truth. It's no different than the truth, and you have to fucking cover it.
And Danny, how strong or how serious a case is this, and what would you likely expect from a defense?
This is a very serious charge, and it carries serious penalties. And because the elements are really that somebody was a habitual addict of a stimulant or a narcotic, you might expect the defense to be something on the order of, well, that wasn't me. I wasn't that person at that time. And of course, the government will likely introduce evidence, say, from Hunter's book or other evidence that they have that maybe has been reported that, in fact, he was in violation of that statute. But that subsection, the idea that somebody is an addict.
Yeah, they're going to use evidence of him smoking crack with the revolver in his hand. Like, it's you know, it's that's kind of open and shut. Which, let's be clear, is very cool. Exactly. Being cool is not a crime. Okay, being cringe is not a crime, and neither is being cool.
Really leaves open a lot for definition. So that's why it's a statute, a subsection, I say, that is not very often brought. So it'll be very interesting to see how he defends this case, should he choose to proceed to trial.
All right, Danny. Thanks, Laura, as well. That concludes this NBC News special report. We'll have much more ahead on our streaming network, NBC News Now. And tonight...
No.